In Project 5, we're going to take a look at the accessibility and the compatibility features that Word has to offer. And then we're going to also look at how we can manage versions of our document within Word. So the first one that we're going to look at is the accessibility checker feature. And this feature actually checks your document for content that a person with disabilities such as a visual impairment might have when they read through the document. And it just takes you through a process, and then it provides suggestions and actually places some of the items that are in question in three different areas. Three different categories, I should say. One of them is errors, and the errors basically mean that any content that is unreadable to a person who is blind. Warnings, which is another category that indicates that content is difficult to read. And then there's a third category called tips that suggests that the content may or may not be difficult to read. And then each one of those categories gives you additional information about what they've provided as far as questionable, and then you have an opportunity to go through and correct that within the document. So in Project 5A, I've opened up the file called Prim Pro, which is Premium Produce, and I've renamed it as they've suggested in 5A, and this is on page 314. So we're going to start the accessibility checker by going to the File tab, and again in the Info category we're going to go to the Check for Issues button, and you'll see the Check Accessibility. Notice it says check the document for the content that people with disabilities might find difficult to read. So we'll click on that. Notice that brings up an accessibility checker task pane on the right hand side, and it has errors, warnings, and there's not any tips on this one. But in the errors, notice missing alternate text, and then it categorizes those into three other ones. So this is the suggestion that it makes, maybe, is to apply alternate text to these items. So with picture 4, if I click on that, that brings up picture 4 in my document. Also down at the bottom, it provides why fix. Well, alternate text helps readers understand information presented in pictures and other objects. It tells how to fix that. And for this first one, they are going to have us correct picture 4. And so to do that, and I'm following these instructions, we're right-clicking on the picture. We're going to go to Format Picture. Down at the bottom, in the category at the bottom, is Alt Text. And the title that we're going to include for this is Cornucopia, which I may not be pronouncing that correctly, so sorry about that. And then the description, we'll put in clip art image. Wow. Of a cornucopia of fruits and vegetables representing premium produce. Okay, so this is given for those that have certain disabilities additional information rather than looking, rather than looking at the picture. Okay, so after we've provided the alternative text, I'm going to close out of that, and then you can look at some of the other ones at the top here. Diagram 1, which takes you to the diagram within the document. You can actually see that. Click on that again. And they're saying that the diagram 1, obviously when you click on that, it's telling you that you should provide alternate text. But they're saying that since the text describes, it has actual information in it, it should be easily interpreted, so we don't have to include that alternate text. And then the second table at the top, no header row specified. If I click on table, again it takes me to that table within the document, and again down, why should we fix it? A table header row contains column headings that provide context and aid navigation of the data in the table, which is practical. But again, it's saying since the table in the document does not span across pages, you can ignore the information. So again, we have kind of a header there, so they're going to have us ignore that. In the warning section, if we click on, and it says objects not in line, but if we click on picture 4 again, objects not in line with text are difficult to navigate to and may be inaccessible to people with vision disabilities. Again, the clip art would be moved to a different location on the page, so they're suggesting that you may not want to move this around, I mean, if you move it anywhere else, you're still going to have the same issue. So, all right, diagram 1, again, takes you to diagram 1. It's a warning. Objects not in line with text are difficult to navigate. Again, if they're not around that text, same problem may apply. And so they're just going to say that we're not going to make any changes with that. So once you've reviewed all the errors, the warnings, and there may be tips, like I suggested earlier, once you've addressed those, then you can close out of the task pane, and hopefully you've made that a little bit more friendly so that others who may have difficulties reading through the document can now read it a little bit more easily. Okay, and you can also check a document for compatibility. And again, if you are using Word 2010 like we're using, there may be a time when you're going to share your document with others who may be using previous versions of Word. And those previous versions can range from Word 97 through 2007. So some of the newer features in 2010 may not be accessible in some of those previous versions. So it may be nice to know what those are, and then you can make changes if necessary. So they're going to have us use this same document, and we're going to run a compatibility check. Again, under the File tab, Info Category, check for issues, and then check compatibility. The only problem in ours is the Smart Graphic. So Smart Graphics will be converted into a single object that can't be edited in previous versions of Word. And sometimes that doesn't even matter. I mean, if they can't edit it, that's fine. And if they see it as a single object, that's fine too. So notice here the following features in this document are not supported by earlier versions of Word. These features may be lost or degraded when opening this document in an earlier version of Word, or if you save this document in an earlier format. And they do suggest that in the select versions here to save it as an earlier version if necessary. So just be aware of those. If you only wanted to save it as the 97 through 2003, you would click on 2007 to deselect that. That would just leave it with Word 97 2003. Okay. And then I'm going to click OK on that. And then notice when we go to Save As, the Save As type, if you click on the drop down option, you can choose Word 97 2003. Okay. So just making you aware of some of the features that you may not realize that are just available in the version that you're using. Previous versions may not have had some of the features, so you just need to be aware of that again before sending it to others who may be using previous versions. The last section of Chapter 8 looks at managing versions of Word, and you may already be aware of this, but Word automatically saves your document every 10 minutes. So if you haven't saved it, Word automatically creates a backup of it and saves that without your acknowledging it. So therefore, if you close out of your document without saving, or if your power source is interrupted, then it'll automatically create a backup of your currently open document. So we're going to take a look at not only where that feature is that you can kind of modify the number of minutes it takes to create a backup. Like I said, the default is 10, but you can certainly change that to 15 or 5 or whatever minutes that you want for the computer to automatically save your document. We're also going to look at recovering unsaved documents, which again, as I mentioned, you have 10 minutes. Word keeps a backup of that file in what they call an unsaved files folder on the hard drive. And so we're going to look at where you can access that folder and use the Manage Versions button within your Backstage view to pull up that file that was per se lost. So we'll look at those options in Project 5C. And initially here, let me go ahead and close out of this. They want just a blank document open. So we have a blank document. We're going to reset the timing for the auto recover feature. We're going to change that from 10 minutes to 2 minutes. So to do that, I'm going to go under the File tab, and then we're going to go to Options. And within the Options dialog box, we'll go to the Save category on the left. Notice Save Auto Recover is turned turned on, number one, and it's showing 10 minutes. So if we change that to 2, I'll click OK. So now every 2 minutes, whatever document that we have on our screen will be automatically saved. Okay, so I'm going to close out this blank document. We're going to open up the one that we were just in, Premium Produce, sorry. We're going to go to the end of the document, and we're going to type in our first and last name here. And then they ask that we leave this document open for several minutes, and then we can go and test this. I'm going to go ahead and just go through Project 5C, and then if we have it open long enough, it'll work, and if not, it's okay. You can experiment with it on your own. But if we go back to the File tab for just a minute, in the Info category again, notice the versions down here at the bottom. If I'd had previous versions of this file saved or not saved, it would list it there. And if you look on page 318, right next to steps 4 and 5, you'll see where the versions are, and it shows you today 8:59 that has automatically been saved. So if I can be long-winded enough to hold out for 2 minutes, it should place our Premium Produce file, the name of that, right here. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead through here too. Let's go back to the Home tab, and they want us to delete this SmartArt graphic. So I'm going to click on that so that it's selected. Let me get the outer portion of that, and then I'll press the delete key to remove it. And then we'll see if it's saved. It still hasn't gone through that 2-minute mark, so we'll see what happens here. Also within this area, this manage version, if you had, if for some reason the computer lost power or whatever, any documents that were not saved would automatically be saved here in this unrecover or in a recover unsaved documents area. If you click on that, notice that takes you to the open dialog box into an unsaved files folder, and you can see that's located on the C drive in a deep level of folders, but it is there. There's a folder for it, and it automatically saves those files to that area. So also, let's go back here just a minute. Okay, here we go. So it's been 2 minutes. It automatically saved what we did there. Now if you want to remove those, you can right click. You can either open that version, or you can delete the version, or you can compare it to the current version. So I'm going to click on compare with current for just a minute. No differences in it. Okay, I'll go back, right click, open version. And it looks like they're going to, okay, it's going to be the same one that we've had here with the removal of our SmartArt graphic. So it saved it with that removing portion. Okay. So my point here is with this, it does keep track of what's going on here, and if you've not saved it within the last 2 minutes, it'll automatically save it for you. If you want to delete that version, you can certainly do that. If you do so, though, you need to close out of this file. Let's not save that. Sorry about that. And then notice when we go back into the info category, there's an autosave. This is not the newest version of this file, and it has been opened in read-only mode. So if you look at that, notice again, we can open it here. You can compare it. Again, you can restore it to the original version. You have lots of opportunities here to hopefully save it in the most recent version, or in the version that you prefer. So play with that feature. Even if you're just working on another class, kind of look at that and see what it's saving. Now, I'm going to go back. Let me go ahead and close out of this. And I'm going to go to a blank document. I want to set that recovery back to 10 minutes. So I'm back in the Word options, save category. I want that to be 10 minutes again. And then I'll click OK. All right, now that concludes Chapter 8 and the book, actually. So make sure that you read through the chapter summary at the end of Chapter 8, and now those are on pages 320 and 321. Also the concept check, those are on pages 322 and 323. And then for additional practice, you can look at the skills check assessments that begin on page 323. And as always, if you have questions, feel free to email me or call me.